Well, there is absolutely no doubt that Reform are the party of the moment. Nigel Farage, very much the man of the political moment. Consider that before yesterday, Reform barely had a single councillor in the country. Now they have 677. That means they've already overtaken, in one set of council elections, already overtaken the total number that UKIP, a predecessor party for Mr Farage, of course, ever achieved. They only had about 500 at the height of their power. Reform have managed to overtake that in one fell swoop. They also now control 10 county councils, which is more. I say UKIP only ever got Thanet Council, a district council, and of course they've achieved several mayoralties, including Hull and most notably Greater Lincolnshire. And indeed, we're joined now by the new mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkyns. Dame Andrea, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Are you now the most powerful Reform office holder in the country? I should think.
Look, Nigel's the most powerful reformer, and I joined Reform because of him. But it's good to be in a position where we start getting power, including the councils, the 10 councils that we've now got control of.
Well, indeed, and congratulations on the result. It is rumoured that several of your former colleagues in the Conservative Party, Suella Braverman, Edward Lee, Jack Rankin, among others, might be considering defecting to Reform. Obviously, that is a process something you yourself did. What would your message be to them? Would you welcome them?
I think it's down to Reform and the vetting process. And we want people who have got the same values as ourselves, which is about family, community and country. And I mean, the vetting process is so strident, Lewis. I mean, I'm aware of a Conservative councillor who I know, he didn't pass vetting.
Surely your old colleagues, Suella Braverman and Edward Lee, would pass the vetting, Dame Andrea, surely.
Look, I mean, I'd welcome people like Suella. She's politically sound, but you need to ask her whether any conversations have gone on.
Are you aware of any?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure? You're not sure if there's any conversations gone on?
No, I'm not sure. No. I mean, all I can say, Lewis, is that I've had quite a number of former Conservative MPs and a couple of current ones, including a former minister who's contacted me since I've defected, asking me, what is it like on the inside? How do you feel about the move? Have you made the right decision? So I think clearly these questions people are trying to find out.
And do you think that process is being made worse by Kemi Bader not being leader?
Oh God, most definitely.
Do you think that you would have do you think you would have more trouble if Robert Jenrick was the Conservative leader?
No, I don't know how they're going to get rid of Kemi, actually, because they changed the 1922 committee rules, didn't they? And if you look now, they don't have enough MPs to fill all the positions. So some of the MPs have got several positions. So they're actually bought into this leadership in a way, aren't they? So I'm not sure how they will get rid of her.
But do you think Jenrick would be more of a problem for you?
Jenrick's a friend of mine. And I'll always respect Jenrick. I've still got friends in the Conservative Party, but Nigel is the one that people listen to. Look, they was part of the government in quite senior positions, and what I found by the electorate and being on the doorstep, people don't trust the Conservatives or Labour.
And if Boris Johnson were to return, which there are rumours, do you think, obviously you were a big fan of Boris Johnson's, would that pose a problem for Reform?
No, but Boris is not going to return. I mean, look, he'll always be Conservative. I'm friends with Boris and Carrie. I've got a lot of respect for them. And he won't return. But the fact is, it's a new dawn now. I fully back Nigel, and I genuinely believe that he's the only one who can get this country back on its feet.
It's now being said, of course, that Reform are going to receive more scrutiny because, of course, you're in control of all places. And I'm sure, rightly so, I'm sure you welcome that. So let's talk a little bit about your plans. You've said that you're going to establish a Lincolnshire Doge. How is that going to operate in practice? You're in Lincolnshire's Elon Musk.
Look, now we've got control of Lincolnshire County Council. Now the Greater Lincolnshire has North Lincolnshire, North East and Lincolnshire County Council under its jurisdiction. Now we have Reform controlling Lincolnshire County Council, we can do things like this, which is brilliant. And then I'm hoping that, we can actually root out the waste, which the point of doing this is actually to keep taxes low for constituents.
How much money do you want to save? How much money do you want to save? What's the aim?
It depends. It's very hard to say until, I'm going in there on Tuesday, until we start looking at the balance sheet and we start looking, I want to look at the tendering process. I want to look at the contracts that they've got. So this it's hard to answer at this stage, but I mean, I think personally we'd also ought to look at maybe cutting the workforce by up to 10%.
Up to 10%.
We've got to have a lean, mean local government. That's what I personally like to see. But again, there's variables there because we haven't elected a reform county council leader yet. So there's got to be discussions to have.
Are you aware of how much in real terms per person spending for Lincolnshire Council, the budget for Lincolnshire Council has declined since 2010?
Well, I know what the interest is. It's what, £52,000 per constituent is the interest.
So they've already had a spending reduction of 18% per person after adjusting for inflation and population growth. So this is a council or set of councils that you're taking control of, which is already rather stretched. And so you're going in there saying you're going to cut even more.
But it's always way. I mean, look what Nigel uncovered, £200,000 on interpreter services, £50,000 for a green ambassador. There is always, I know we will uncover ways to make savings which will not affect frontline services.
Do you know how much, I've noticed something that your deputy leader and indeed Lincolnshire MP, Richard Tice, has said that now reform control the council and the mayoralty. This is his tweet. This means if you're thinking of investing in solar farms, battery storage systems, or trying to build pylons, think again. We'll fight you every step of the way. So your message to those companies thinking about creating jobs and investing in your area is no, thank you.
No, it's about actually, I think the issue is the three main political parties have an homogenised view on net zero, and there's been no scrutiny. And it's great that in reform, we're scrutinising this, we're pushing back to make sure we get the best thing for the taxpayer. And I fully behind what Richard Tice says. And look, I'm pro fracking. I will be meeting with a company who found the gas find in Lincolnshire, and to put a business case together how this will actually be better for the consumer and save money on their bills, which is the ultimate aim here.
But do you know how much your own North East Lincolnshire Council reckons the green economy is worth in Greater Lincolnshire?
No, but the fact is, look,
it's 1.2 billion a year.
Yeah, it's worth a lot, but that's
you don't want that. You don't want that investment.
No, what I'm saying is, look, I'm not going to bite the hand that feeds us. However, there's got to be ultimate scrutiny. And why are businesses going down that route? Because they're incentivized to go down that route. So we've got to shift the dial.
But Richard
We've got to shift the dial for a more common sense approach.
Sure.
And it's right. You know, we should not be having these pylons. It feels like Lincolnshire's been used as an experiment by Ed Miliband. They want to burn chicken poo as biomass and dump it in Lincolnshire. They want tens of thousands of acres of solar farm on prime agricultural land. And they want pylons. And, you know, this is ridiculous. We are the county that feeds Britain. This has got to stop. No one's talking about food security, but reform are.
I understand, but Dame Andrea, I mean, your deputy leader isn't just saying, well, scrutinise, which is fair enough. These things should always be scrutinised. And you're right, there has been a consensus view among the parties for a while, although that's been breaking down to some extent. But he's saying something else. He's saying, if you are thinking of investing in solar farms, battery storage, think again. So I ask you again, if there is a company out there thinking, oh, I'd like to invest in the green economy in Lincolnshire, your party's message is, no, thank you.
Look, we are creating more opportunities. One thing I would like to do is actually create an AI defence hub in Lincolnshire. This is a name of the university. I want us to be global leaders on this. Look what they did in Filton. They have a brilliant defence manufacturing industry. So by creating an AI defence industry in Lincolnshire, there's so much way we can get investment. I've already met with, a few weeks ago before I became the mayor, with the US Embassy to look at can we take delegations of our industry across there to then look for inward investment here. Sure. There will be opportunities. You know, Lincolnshire will be open for business and investment, and I will make sure.
But not if you're a green company.
I think that green companies have actually got to look. I believe in the markets, and the markets change, and companies and industries leave the market. We've got to create new industries to enter the market.
But will you be fighting them? Richard Tice is saying you're going to fight them.
Well, good, absolutely.
Even though they're employing some of your constituents. You're fighting employers.
No, I will ensure that we have a thriving economy. I'm going to ensure that we have a skills board, which is industry led, where we have the skills of tomorrow, which future proofs the economy. I'm going to ensure that we have a transport for Lincolnshire, just like they have a transport for London, and ensure that we actually get Lincolnshire moving and we've got the infrastructure there so we can get good investment, because it's been the poor relation for too long, Lincolnshire has.
You, of course, your website has said, and you've run against DEI, the diversity, equality, inclusion policies. You want to bring an end to those things. Let's just break that down, scrutinise it a little bit more. So Lincolnshire County Council is committed. It says on its own website that 3 of the principal components of its DEI programme are its Disability Confidence Scheme, which tries to help disabled people get jobs at the council, age-friendly scheme, which tries to allow older people to get jobs at the council, an anti-racism scheme, which includes applying the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's working definition of anti-Semitism. Which bit of that of those things would you disagree with?
You're talking to somebody who is neurodiverse myself, and my son has autism and ADHD. I've got ADHD. It's about creating an environment what's welcoming for all skills. But I'm a meritocrat. We need to ensure, I wouldn't care if the whole workforce is men or women. What I want to do is make sure we have the right people for the job. There should never be any barriers, but this whole thing is divisive. We should be looking at people as individuals. We should not be ticking boxes. We should be looking at the skills and the right people for these jobs.
Even though on those bases, the 3 principal schemes it has, trying to help disabled people, older people, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, they seem pretty inoffensive. Wouldn't you agree?
No, but these are national schemes anyway. I mean, the disability one was a national one brought in by the Conservative government.
But do you want those things to stop?
But why do you need specific officers on stuff like this?
I suppose the argument will be that...
Why should you not just look at people's CV and should not see these barriers, just actually see, this person's got the experience, whether they are disabled, whether they're male or female, no matter what their ethnic background. It should be about, have these people got the skills to do this job?
Understood. Your chairman, your party chairman, has written today in the Sunday Times that children in this country are being taught to hate their country and their country's history. Obviously, now you'll have a role, to some extent at least, over education in your area. What's his evidence for this idea? Do you know?
Look, I haven't seen the article, Lewis, and so it's hard to comment on that.
Sure.
But all I know is from being an MP for 9 years, I think it's too much of this globalist agenda, actually. And I think that...
What does that mean?
This globalist agenda, the public's had enough. We've got to start putting British people at the heart of all our decisions. And so I think that this is what we need to do, in at a local level and eventually, God willing, when we get into government.
I suppose that the point would be in terms of, it's quite a divisive thing to say, isn't it? The idea that we're teaching children to hate their own country without any evidence for it.
Well, you're asking me about the evidence. I haven't seen the article, so I can't comment on that, can I? You probably need to ask Zia what his evidence is. So I think the issue is with mainstream media, they see everything as divisive when you just call out they're rubbish. So I'm sorry, but it's right that we challenge these things. I was brought up in a working class background, Lewis, and to love our Queen at the time, our country, and to actually do your best in life, be kind, and do your best in the community. And these are principles. This is why Nigel, he's really tapped into something here. It's about community, it's about families, and it's about our country. And these are the 3 things that, I think young people should be taught is what is important these days.
I just wanted to ask you about your comments about illegal migrants or asylum seekers, talking about what happens in France, saying that tents are good enough in France. It's good enough here. I mean, have you been to some of the camps in northern France and seen what happens there?
No, I haven't. But the fact is, I mean, I just like you and everybody else, we see on YouTube.
I'm not trying to trick you. I'm asking.
No,
and the only reason I'm asking is because having reported from there quite extensively myself, I can say that one of the things that local French people hate most about that
Yes.
is seeing people in tents, so much so that the French police confiscate their tents. So it would seem a bit of a curious policy to try and
Well,
emulate.
no, I mean, look, it happens in other countries and also, but we've got to
Lots of
get to
things happen in other countries.
Look, my whole point of making this statement is that we are soft touch Britain, and we're acting like bees to honey by putting people in hotels, by, they get the accommodation, they get their food paid. I mean, look, some Conservative-led councils have even paid for driving lessons. This is taxpayers' money, and it should actually be tents, not rent. It should actually be, and British people are charitable, Lewis, but they're struggling themselves now. Energy costs are at an all-time high. Mortgage rates, my mortgage went up £800 a month when the fixed rate finished. So I know what it's like to struggle as a single parent. And so people are struggling. So why should the British people be putting people in hotels out of their own pocket
so
when
you'd be happy
they
to
work
see,
so
you'd be
hard?
happy, you'd be content, as the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, you can have a role in this. If there are roads with people in with tents, you're content with that?
It's got to be a confined area. I mean, I have to say, this isn't a reform policy.
If there were children, should they be in tents?
The fact is, we've got to stop the pull to Britain with this. And why are we paying these millions and millions of pounds to France when people come from a safe country such as France to come here? We should be sending them back to France.
So if there were children in Lincolnshire, unaccompanied migrants, and they were in tents on the roadside,
well, how are they
your
going to
message
get
is
here
okay.
in the first place?
I know, but once they are here, if they're in a tent, that's okay with you.
No. What percentage is actually children? Look, the majority of them is actually but the majority is economic migrants, Lewis. They've got the mobile phones. It's usually young men who come across, and we've got to stop this pull to Britain. We've got to be able to push back on this.
One more thing, Dame Andrea, because this could be in your inbox very, very shortly. You may have seen this morning that the General Secretary of Unison, Christina McAnee, has said that is urging people in areas like yours, councils like yours, to join a union, and has said that they could, if they feel that what you're going to do with this Doge idea is unfair, that they could turn to industrial action. What's your message to the unions this morning?
Fact is, they actually broke electoral law during the campaign. They wrote to Lincolnshire County Council employees, I've seen the evidence of this, telling them, please put a video out there which is breaking purdah rules, to say you do not want Andrea Jenkyns as mayor. So, these are not people who play by the rules. I've got no respect for them. Now, these are the union reps, renter mobs to me. They're just trying to bring down any decent government or local government who's trying to save for the taxpayer. It should not be about them. It should be about the taxpayer. Every council employee should be scrutinised for the taxpayer. I should be scrutinised for the taxpayer, because any pound that's spent by the public purse should be scrutinised, and that is the right thing to do. We've got to push back on this mentality. If they want a fight, then I'm up for a fight.
I've no doubt. Dame Andrea Jenkyns there, the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, newly elected, of course, someone who I think one way or the other is going to be playing quite a big role in our politics over the next few years.